So recently I've been doing quite a few one-to-one coaching sessions with my clients on iRacing, and something that has really surprised me over the last few weeks whilst training these drivers and giving them insight and things like that is that a lot of times what they're doing isn't actually wrong fundamentally, it's just that they're doing it in the wrong areas. So for example, their brake curve and their lift-off points and their steering angle and everything looks absolutely fine, they're just doing it either 5 meters too late or 5 meters too early or something like that. And it's not a case of the absolute fundamentals are broken, it is just a lack of refinement. So I figured what we'd do today is use a couple of my laps as a direct example of what this might look like, and then also show you guys how much you can potentially gain or lose depending on how refined you can get your driving style. So starting off then, this is what a good lap, like a refined lap, would look like. So down towards turn number 1. Of course we're only on lap 2 of the tyres here, they're still a little bit cold, but you can see a spike at just around 60%, getting the nose tucked in and trailing off the brake fairly quickly. Now, throughout the course of this lap you'll see we're not using a huge amount of brake pressure and we're trying to keep that brake curve just as smooth as we possibly can. Of course the steering might be a little bit twitchy at points, the throttle might be a little bit twitchy at points, but the absolute key point to going quickly, specifically in a GT3, is having that smooth and controlled and refined brake trace. Now refinement is the number one thing that most people are lacking in their driving style. It's not a case of the fundamentals are wrong, you know, people fundamentally understand how to drive. It's just that they're not doing things in the right areas, so they might be trying to carry too much entry speed with too much brake, or they might be doing the converse and thinking, I've really got to save my tyres, I can't brake too hard, you know, I'll brake just a little bit earlier with less pressure, hopefully keep the tyres intact, and that should make me quick. And the answer is you need a hybrid of both. What separates a 2K driver from an esports driver like myself is just knowing where to use your speed. So on entry, understanding how much speed you can carry, how much brake you need to carry, steering input and things like that, knowing when to trail off to disengage the ABS at the right point. You know, the actual pedal traces, sure ours might look a little bit smoother than yours, but in general, you still have the right idea with it. It's just not refined. So, in the background I'm sure you've been seeing this lap going on. Not the quickest lap I've ever hit, but it's relatively tidy. Gives you guys a good sort of base reference idea of what we are sort of looking for in terms of refinement. And now we're going to go look at what happens if you try and brake a hell of a lot later and harder than this. So this is an example of trying to attack the entries a little bit more. You can see a big stab of brake there and straight away the car gets upset. All we're doing there is just upsetting the weight balance or the weight transfer of the car, overheating the tyres and things like that. You can see we're braking significantly later on this lap with more pressure, and yeah, we pulled the car up there for that corner, but something that you can't see on the Delta is the damage it's going to do to the tyres. In general, you can brake later and harder and still make the corner and it might feel fine, but you're just gradually losing time through every single corner because the tyres are not in their best operating window. You can see there how late we braked, and we still got it pulled up by using that amount of brake, but what you don't see is obviously the surface temperatures. They're just going to absolutely skyrocket, and if you do this over the course of an entire stint, your wear is going to be significantly worse than if you just smooth things out, braked a little bit less, but still braked at roughly the same point. It's just about finding out how efficient you can actually be with the brake points. So if someone's coming to a coaching session like this, the first thing I would be saying to them is just, look, calm down, like, you have the right idea of, you know, trying to brake as late as possible, really carry the speed into the corner, but in turn what you're actually doing is just hurting your mid-corner speed, damaging the tyres, so the feeling of the car is going to be inconsistent. And now what we're looking for is just to pull everything back, sort of 5% or so, and just try and smooth it all out. Now, if you're going to try and change your driving style as well, you're probably not going to see immediate gains. I say to people all the time, like, the way I look at improving in the sim is a lot like building a house. So we want to make sure that we have the right foundations, they're nice and flat, and then you can build that house as high as you want to go. Obviously with the house being your lap times or I rating or whatever you want to consider it as. But if the foundations aren't correct, and they're all wonky and squint, then the house can only go so high, i.e. your lap times can only get so fast. So you can see the difference in lap times here. This is me just driving properly, or normally, with my usual style, with a 58.7, trying to brake as late as I could everywhere, smashing the brake pedal, ended up being a 59.3, and then doing the converse of that, of braking earlier but less, in turn should keep the tyre better, but as you'll see throughout the lap, we don't carry the speed. So this is just all about getting your foundations right when it comes to improving, and that's where I can help you guys with coaching sessions, is I can look at your inputs and look at your driving style and say, look, the foundations are pretty good, they're just a little bit offset, so we'll just realign them and then we can start to build the house on top. So you can see just how little brake we're actually using here. We're just braking around 10 meters earlier at every single corner, using way less brake, and I will say the tyres felt immaculate on this lap. Straight away I could feel the increase in grip compared to smashing the brake pedal, but we're just not carrying the speed on entry. So if you're a driver who's like this, who doesn't really like to use a whole lot of brake because you're always thinking about the tyre management, then I'd be saying to you, carry the same brake trace, just try and do it slightly later, and if you run deep through the corner, that's fine. It's going to take a few tries to get a feel for it. The way to go quick is to use this type of braking technique, right? And when you first start to use it, it feels that you're going to run deep in every single corner. But because the tyres are cooler, right at the point you come off the brake and turn, you get extra grip to what you might be used to, and the car will pull up and it will turn. So back in 2019 or something, it was 2020, when I was trying to really master this technique, when the tyre model changed, that was how it was for me for about 2 or 3 weeks, was I just felt like I was running deep in every single corner, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. Then eventually it clicked and my results just improved dramatically, because I was able to control the surface temperature of the tyres while still maintaining a high level of accuracy and a high level of speed. So through this section here, again, this lap looks really tidy. For me, I could feel that the tyres are in really good condition. I could do this lap, every single lap for an entire stint, and not even have a wobble or a snap or anything like that, or have to complain about having any tyre temperature problems. But it was almost a second off from what I was doing normally. So it's just all about finding that refinement and working on it. So guys, that is a little short example of what it looks like when you do the same thing, pretty much the same thing, on a lap-to-lap basis, but you just refine it slightly. We braked it roughly at the same points. Of course, when we were braking harder, we were braking a little bit deeper, but we were still getting pulled up for corners. So someone who wasn't quite sure if it was right or not would be thinking, right, well, I'm braking at the 3 cones and I'm smashing the brake pedal to 100% and I'm still making the apex. How are they to know that that's wrong? So as I say, with my driver coaching, that is where I can help you guys with that kind of stuff, is just really nailing down the points that you need to refine. Obviously, everyone is completely different. There's some people that could have a really ragged brake trace that just has to try and smooth things out, like you might see with myself, or if you're watching Moritz Lochner, he's got one of the smoothest pedal inputs you'll ever see. That's kind of what you want to aim for, right? If you have got a really jagged brake input, you want to try and smooth that out first, and then we deal with the refinement of where you carry the speed. Is it entry? Is it right before the apex where you really want to slow the car right up? Are you over slowing for the corner, so you're braking a few meters too early and too hard? In which case then you've got a double problem there of not attacking the entry hard enough, and then in turn overheating the tyres out because you've braked too hard earlier in there as well. There's so many different scenarios that it's hard to kind of cover everything in the one video of what your problem might be, so that's why I do offer the specific one-to-one coaching sessions. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them down below or pop them in my Discord server. That will be linked in the description below. And don't forget to check out the previous video as well, where we discussed the 5 biggest iRacing tyre exploits.